Hey, welcome to Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia. It's Monday, May 6th, and today's topic, are international associations really that different? Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia is brought to you by Rogue Tulips, LLC, a 501c consulting firm. And we are also at Rogue Tulips, a proud supporter of the 501c League, which is a virtual membership organization for all 501c professionals. I'm here today with my co-host, Agnes Amos Coleman. I am Cecilia Sepp. I am the principal and founder and sometimes technical person behind this program. we do. We had a little glitch this morning, but I am, as I said, a longtime association executive, founder of the 501c League, as well as my work at Rogue Tulips as a consultant for 501c organizations. And I want to throw it over to Agnes so she can introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm an author and a consultant with Rogue Tulip.
And Agnes is also a mentor in the 501c League mentoring program. So thank you for that, Agnes. We appreciate it.
That's correct. Thank you.
So today's topic, are international organizations really that different from U.S. associations? This topic came up for both of us because we're kicking off kind of an international month here at Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, because Agnes is going on a trip to Nigeria and I will be going on a trip to Australia. And at least one of our program episodes will be recorded while we are in completely different parts of the world. So we're kind of looking forward to that. So we thought, let's talk about international issues. And Agnes has a whole list of topics that we cannot get through in 15 minutes. So Agnes, what do you want to start with?
Sure, Cecilia, and thank you. Associations globally have the same global issues. And some of the issues that we're not, of course, going to be able to discuss in depth today are technology issues, political issues, regulatory and compliance issue, risk issues, talent management, and cultural issues. And the reason why I wanted to give this kind of overview of high-level topics is because these are the issues that we all, grapple with as an association or as association professionals. So, they are issues that we deal with in our day-to-day life, but depending on the part of the world that we operate from, these are going to be unique to that culture. And that's one thing that we have to bear in mind, Cecilia. But overall, the business issues are the same, but the application and the principles are going to be very different, and it will be regional or culturally based.
And those are excellent points, because we also face those in a smaller way in the United States, because the different regions of the U.S. are very different, north and south, east and west, Midwest, upper Northwest versus lower Northwest, Midwest, I should say. I think I said Northwest, I meant Midwest. But so we do have these different issues. Even just in the state where I'm from, Missouri, there's like this big divide between Kansas City and St. Louis for some reason. Probably because we're on opposite ends of the state, so it's very different. One of the things I was thinking about, though, is the benefit of technology for international outreach. I know a lot of U.S. organizations are really trying to be more global, which I think is great, because we need to find things that we have in common that connect us. But it also kind of brings us back to that the new boogeyman of GDPR. And I call it the new boogeyman because years ago it was social media, then it became the revisions to the 990 form. Now we're all like, GDPR, are we compliant or not? And I think that maybe that might be putting some U.S. organizations off. I don't think it should. I think that, we can definitely reach out to people. I know international components, like international chapters, can be an issue. How are you giving them service? How do we do this? How do we keep those things going? But I wanted to get your take on this. You've lived around the world,
yes,
different places, and over the years of just my studying and getting to know people and how things work, and actually helping start an international chapter earlier in my career. One of the things I learned was that in Europe, joining groups is much more important than it is in the United States. And so I wanted to get your take on that. Like, did you find that moving around to the different countries you've lived in, that joining groups was more important in different parts of the world than maybe it is here?
I don't think so. I think that the issue is, what you don't know. And knowledge, as you and I know, it's evolving.
Right.
And I think what you find is that as people begin to understand the impact of, joining groups and being part of the international community and the value that it brings, then there is that awareness to participate. But because a lot of people are evolving in their field, and as you mentioned earlier on, technology is playing a significant part in how we all do business globally. So it's making it a lot easier for us to join groups, to become part of associations, and even to look at remote work, for instance. I mean, a few years ago, it's a no-no for most organizations, but we're seeing that significant change, and most global organizations are now working in a global environment, and they're able to have teams in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in North America, South America, and really delivering business results. So joining groups are becoming a more acceptable and more prominent thing to do as people begin to understand the value that it brings, and technology is definitely helping us achieve that goal.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, you and I have had many conversations about my love of technology and video and real-time communication like we're doing now. And just so people who may be watching this episode and future episodes should realize, I am in Maryland and Agnes is in Florida. And so we're able to do this because of technology. We're able to bring the Mid-Atlantic and the South together. And
That's
that's a
correct.
great thing, I think. But one of the things that I often see, and I think it makes sense, a lot of countries look to the United States for help with association management. Like, how do we do it? But do you think that maybe we need to flip that, and maybe we need to start looking at the associations outside the United States for how to do things?
At least from my experience and really looking at the global market, the association world, it's very big in the US. In other countries, it's evolving, it's emerging. And then what you find is some countries don't even call them associations, they call them NGOs. But really, it's very similar concept as far as the governance is concerned. It's just slightly different. And I think the issue here is how we can find that common ground between NGOs, association world here, or even the governance structures that it's been used globally. But foundationally, when you look at it, it's very, very similar because they all have similar governance structure, but how it's all implemented is it's different. And maybe that's where we need to start from. Where is our commonality? Where is the common grounds? And then look at, okay, where is it that we don't have that commonality, and see where we can benefit and add value to each other's knowledge base. And I see tremendous opportunity there. Rather than, we looking at to the US for help, but really looking at us as a global market and really looking at how we can all benefit from each other's experience, regardless of what we call our association entity, whether it's NGOs, association, trade organizations, and all different fancy names that we name this association structure.
Well, and isn't that true? Fancy names for what we're doing. Because I've always kind of equated NGOs with what we refer to as nonprofits, like charities. Because a lot of NGOs, they're helping people. It's literacy campaigns, or we're getting people food or water, or teaching them about taking better care of themselves. So this kind of, to me, an NGO is kind of comparative, comparable. That's the word I'm looking for, comparable. Yes, folks, it's Monday morning, 2 cups of coffee in. What horrible, use my vocabulary. But I've always thought NGOs were comparable to, charities or foundations in the United States. And that could be like a whole other chat, I think, is like what people say nonprofit or not for profit. And that's why I say 501c, because we're all 501cs, but we may have different purposes, but in the United States anyway. But I also think you're right. We need to start looking at what do we have in common? What can we
Hmm.
learn from each other? Because this is why US groups want to reach out internationally because, for example, there are scientists all over the world. So
Absolutely.
why not connect them in some way and then maybe every 2 years have a big conference? Like, for example, later this month when I'm traveling, I'm going to a conference called the World Taxpayers Association Conference, which meets every 2 years and it's all the different tax groups from all over the world because everybody all over the world is paying taxes and
That's correct.
think about that. So that's a really great of the moment example for me of how these groups get together and help each other, and they share ideas about grassroots motivations because all around the world they need to do that. And they may not call it grassroots like we do here, but that's, it's what they're doing. How do I get people to write letters? How do I get people to show up at meetings? And they talk about these different things and educate.
Yes.
So I think that's really something. But I just really think it comes back to what you said a few minutes ago. What do we have in common? Let's focus on what we have in common, not what makes us different. And then what's unique about us, we could share. And
That's
I think not just our profession, but I think the whole world would be a better place if we did that more often.
agreed. And there's a lot of associations, Cecilia, to your point, that are very global in nature. That operate, they're registered in the US, but they operate from in all countries of the world, or even in Europe, that operate in all countries of the world. So there are associations, but there isn't enough of them. But the few ones that are there that do operate in the true global sense. And there is, again, tremendous opportunities to continue to look at some of those issues that we talked about, that really do, that are common, that really unite us, and look at areas how we can improve those issues that are very unique to our regions, But again, we've talked about a lot of those issues: technology issues, political issues, regulatory and compliance issues. Those are going to be regional. Risk issues everywhere, talent management, cultural issues. So again, it's really just finding that common ground for us.
Yeah, and that I think is really the common ground. And I think that's kind of why people in other countries look to the US for some advice and examples. There's a lot of places in the world where associations are growing, whatever you call them, association, NGO, professional organization. I read a really interesting book years ago called The Scion Revelation
Mm-hmm.
by Lynn Picknett and Clive Owens. And it talks about the importance of joining groups in Europe and what a big part of the societal fabric it is. And I also had read an article about a woman's experience moving to France. And people in France say, by the time we graduate college, we've met everybody we need to know. And I think just some of those and I'm sure there's different viewpoints all around the world like that about groups within your society. And it's actually years ago when I was consulting previously, I did some work for the Lions Club International
Mm-hmm.
through Association Laboratory, and they were growing like gangbusters all around the world,
Hmm.
but they were not growing in the US. And that's what we were trying to figure out. It's like, well, what's going on in the US that's holding them back? And it was really, first of all, people in the US don't feel driven to join a group. They don't feel like they have to join a group.
Hmm.
It's more of a choice. Whereas like in the rest of the world, like Europe and Asia, for example, people felt like, well, I need to join this group in order to advance my career. And
Mm.
whereas like in the US, it's kind of like, yeah, we kind of join if we feel like it. You got to give me a good reason. But also it was something as simple as the Lions Club likes to wear a lot of vests and pins and things like that. And the younger people were not really into that. Were like, well, I don't want to get written up for not wearing my yellow vest kind of. And so it was really, it was kind of a very interesting, not just a generational issue, but a cultural issue about
Yes.
what drives Americans to change. Because Alexis de Tocqueville gets misquoted a lot about
Mm.
his observations of the United States in its early years about joining groups, because what made our group strong is we came together when we needed to,
Mm.
and then we would disband those groups. And so it wasn't always like you always had to be in the group. So we have about 45 seconds left, Agnes, so I want to leave you with the closing comment before we wrap.
Well, I think Cecilia, for closing, I see again tremendous opportunity for us as a global associations, NGOs, or whatever fancy name that we want to call ourselves, to really see a group as a way of helping us advance our careers. And even so, not even just advancing our career, but being part of a community. It really does take a community, to build anything or to succeed in anything, because nobody stands alone. And there is the value and that impact of community that makes us stronger people. And there is a great opportunity here for us as business professionals to really continue to evolve in this area and look at where the opportunity lies so that we can be stronger together.
I love it. That's a great summary. Thank you, Agnes, as always, for being a fantastic co-host and bringer of ideas. And as we close today's meeting, we just want to remind you, exercise your mind, try out a new idea, and talk to somebody for 15 minutes. So until next time, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.